Freshman Democrat socialist Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, the author of the Green New Deal, and now questioning if people should stop having children for the sake of saving the planet. Watch.
There's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult, and it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children? Also, just this basic moral question, like, what do we do? And even if you don't have kids, there are still children here in the world, and we have a moral obligation to them, to leave a better world for them.
Joining me now, President Trump's 2020 senior advisor for the campaign, Lara Trump. Good to see you.
Hi.
Welcome back. So her argument is that because climate change is so daunting, that you might not want to have children, and she understands how people would feel that way.
Well, let's start out by saying she began this whole video series by pouring herself a glass of wine. So maybe that played into kind of the rambling, a little bit of nonsense
She's
we
making
heard
like
there.
Vegetarian chili or something. It's like doesn't everyone across America just set up the phone and start talking into it while you're making dinner?
I mean, I don't know that anybody can put a whole lot of weight into this. It's a little bit crazy. And, you know, our birth rate is going down in this country right now. So by her possibly encouraging people against having children, listen, you don't want the birth rate to get too low. It's actually very detrimental to a country in the future. So I don't think we can give her a whole lot of credit for much here, but just something to tack on to the list of, I guess, kind of nonsensical things that she does sometimes say.
Yeah, I mean, she's railing on plastic bags as well. And as you put, I just think it's an unoptimistic sort of outlook.
Yeah.
I mean, Americans love to,
kids
have your kids, create the next generation. But obviously she feels like there might be some danger involved in that. Here is Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was confronted by some small children who wanted to convince her that she also needed to get on board with the Green New Deal. Watch this.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all for the people.
You know what's interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know what to say about that. It's so funny.
It sounds like she's lecturing them.
She was not happy.
Listen, but actually what you see there is a little bit scary, Martha, because what is happening in this country is that our kids are being indoctrinated with all this nonsense. The Green New Deal, a new study just said it would cost $92 trillion, that if every single family in this country paid $600,000, it would barely cover the cost of it. I don't know about you, but that is a little outrageous, and I don't think anyone is going to get behind that. So now the kids are on top of it. I don't actually know what I would have said to them if they'd have confronted me. So I guess
like, you just wait a minute. Hold on. I'm used to that. I've been doing this for 30 years. Don't tell me how to do my job. And speaking of doing your job, one of your jobs is to make sure they're raising a lot of money for the Trump campaign.
Yes.
Politico headline says that the Trump campaign lacks a strategy to win in 2020, despite the fact they've raised $130 million in the last year. What do you say to them?
Oh, that is such nonsense. First of all, I will say our campaign manager, Brad Parscale, is doing an incredible job. We are light years, Martha, ahead of where we were at the same point in the campaign for 2016 that we are today. We are very organized. We have boots on the ground. We have our state directors falling into place. Everything is in perfect place. And the best part is the president is doing, again, such a good job. I always say it, but a good job for us at the campaign. So our job is going to be easy.
So Joe Biden, we're still waiting to hear whether or not Joe Biden's going to get into the race. But Washington Times reporting today that he's looking at creating a coalition that looks a lot like the coalition that elected your father-in-law. Men, people who with high school educations, in many cases, older voters, a coalition that we saw in parts of western Pennsylvania and Michigan, parts of Ohio. What do you say to that? I mean, is Joe Biden the one that concerns you when you look at 2020?
You know what? Joe Biden was in there with President Obama for 8 long years, and we saw a whole lot of nothing happen during the Obama administration. I am not concerned about Joe Biden. I'm not concerned about anybody that I've seen get in the race so far. The reality is people want results in this country, and they're getting them delivered by our current president, Donald Trump, who is on his way overseas to have the second summit with Kim Jong-un to possibly denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. Those are things you can't ignore when you're talking about electing a president or re-electing a president. Joe Biden cannot say those
Well, let me ask you about that, because the last time they had the summit, President Trump came back and said, it's happening. You know, a tremendous victory. They're going to denuclearize. He promised me that this is what was going to happen. And now he's heading over there and he's essentially saying, as long as there are no nuclear tests, we feel like that's a big win. I think the expectation has changed.
That is a huge win. When is the last time they had a nuclear test? When have they sent missiles over Japan? You have not seen any of this happen since that initial summit. And nobody thought that this would change overnight. And listen, I'm no strategist on this, but I can tell you I feel a lot safer about the place we're in with North Korea thanks to President Trump than I did 4 years ago. That is for sure. So listen, nobody knows what's going to happen. We're obviously dealing with a leader in Kim Jong-un who is very unpredictable, but you know what? Nobody has been able to do what President Trump has done. And as much as they try to argue against it, the mainstream media, the Democrats, they cannot argue with the fact that you have, again, not seen any nuclear testing. You haven't seen any missiles. So we're getting somewhere.
What about Venezuela, just quickly? You know, there's a lot of Mike Pence, the vice president, just on his way back from there, a lot of concern. And the president seems to be standing very strongly by Juan Guaido. But this could get ugly.
Well, I think what people need to remember when you're talking about Venezuela is when you have people who are running for president in 2020 advocating for socialism, Venezuela is a perfect example of what we do not want to happen in the United States. And actually, the RNC just released a great video detailing the dangers of socialism. People on average have lost 24 pounds in Venezuela. 90% of the population lives below the poverty level. It's very dangerous. It's very upsetting. But yes, we stand by the Venezuelan people. And I think the president and vice president have been great in showing their support.
Lara Trump, thanks again. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and host of a brand new podcast. It's excellent, called Newt's World. So you can go get it, download it, and find out what Newt's thinking about. But I want to find out what you're thinking about now. Newt, what does success look like on North Korea, this summit, too?
I think success is any steps towards a more open North Korea, any steps toward accountability for where their nuclear weapons are. I don't think you're going to get a sudden jump. I know the president's always very optimistic. He's always very positive. But I don't think he's going to get a gigantic jump unless the combination of economic opportunity and offering to end the war, which, after all, militarily ended in 1953. So you could argue that after 66 years, it wouldn't be too big a risk. But that would have real implications for life on the Korean Peninsula. And I think that they've got to approach it very carefully because it could change our status in South Korea, which would be potentially very destabilizing.
They could tell our soldiers to leave, right?
This stuff's pretty complicated.
Yeah, they could tell our soldiers to leave?
They would raise, look, they couldn't tell them, but they could raise the question, why are you still here if the war's over? Now, on the side of the South Koreans, I think they clearly believe, Clist and I were just there about 3 weeks ago and spent some time in Seoul and went up to the DMZ, to the militarized zone. And we really got the sense that the South Koreans very much want to see us move forward, but carefully and cautiously, because there's not a huge level of trust here. I think what the president's done so far in opening up Kim Jong-un, getting him to travel. Frankly, if you have his kind of dictatorship, every time you leave the country, you got to wonder whether or not the military is going to let you back in. So I think just getting him to travel is a significant step in the right direction. And I think Secretary Pompeo has been very clear. If he doesn't move forward, we're just going to have tougher and tougher economic sanctions and continue to grind down his economy. So he gets to decide which future he wants.
Media has been pretty critical about this, at least certain people on the Sunday shows yesterday. Do you see any criticism here? Isn't one meeting better than no meeting? Or two meetings, I should say?
Look, if the president did not go to Hanoi, the media would be very critical. If the president goes to Hanoi, the media will be very critical. If the president announces that in a magic moment, Kim Jong-un has joined the Rotary Club, totally demilitarized, eliminated all of his nuclear weapons, they'll find something new to be critical of. You know, the objective reality is that there's a very substantial part of the American elite which knows that they hate Trump. They know that they dislike anything he does. And if he brought every one of them a large chocolate ice cream sundae, they would still be mad at him because he didn't put the cherry on top. So I don't take seriously anything on Sunday shows period.
There we go. Well, Mr. Speaker, there was a resolution that's in the House of Representatives in reaction to the president's declaration of a national emergency. He declared an emergency at the border, going to build the wall with money elsewhere. Democrats responding, trying to invalidate that. But you've got some Democrats going even farther, Mr. Speaker. Governor Jay Inslee says Democrats will use this tool to declare a national emergency on climate change. Listen.
But ultimately, in responding to the climate change emergency, we need to work together, executive and legislative branch. But if there are new rules, the Republicans have to understand that Democrats will play by whatever the rules are, particularly when it comes to climate change.
Sorry, another Sunday show there, Mr. Speaker. But what do you say to that threat from Democrats?
Look, I say, first of all, if you look at the total number of executive orders that Barack Obama issued and the number of times that he pushed the margins of behavior, it's a little hard to get too worried about the next time. Second, the Democrats in the House will pass something. They have the votes. But they won't pass it by a big enough margin to override the president's veto. So my advice to the president is relax, build the wall, veto the resolution if it gets through the Senate. Don't worry about it. You'll be sustained. And just get your job done. I mean, create jobs, continue to grow the economy, he's gaining dramatically, for example, among Latino voters for a practical reason. They've got jobs and their salaries are going up. So I think he ought to focus on doing his job and not worry too much about all the political noise.
Yeah, let's hope people realize that if you're strong on the border, it doesn't mean you're anti-Hispanic. Meanwhile, we cannot wait to listen to the latest version of your new podcast, Newt's World, at Gingrich360.com, available on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get podcasts. Good job, Newt.
Congratulations.
Good. Good to be with y'all.
Thank you.
Always. Appreciate it. Good stuff.
The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee says he'll subpoena special counsel Robert Mueller's final report if Attorney General William Barr doesn't give it to Congress.
We will bring Bob Mueller in to testify before Congress. We will take it to court if necessary. And in the end, I think the department understands they're going to have to make this public.
Several Justice Department officials have told Fox News Mueller's Russia investigation is close to wrapping up. Prosecutors are looking into Moscow's meddling in the 2016 presidential election, possible collusion with members of the Trump campaign, and whether the president obstructed justice. The president has repeatedly said there was no collusion and no obstruction. Meantime, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who was overseeing Mueller's investigation, talked about the case today. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, reporting live in Washington. Catherine.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon. In a Washington think tank earlier today, the Deputy Attorney General seemed to choose his words carefully, calling the Mueller probe, quote, open. And Rod Rosenstein said he believes the public will also have an open mind about the findings, despite negative tweets from the president.
You may be disappointed to know I'm actually not going to answer that question directly, because I don't comment on open investigations. I think that you can be misled if you just follow the internet or cable TV about what American people think and how appropriately skeptical they are of information, that is, that they don't simply believe everything that they see on TV or read on the internet.
Under the special counsel regulations, Attorney General William Barr, who was sworn in 2 weeks ago, writes a summary of the Mueller findings, and Barr decides how much is released to the public and how much is provided to Congress. Barr testified during confirmation hearings that he will err on the side of transparency. Rosenstein reinforced that position this morning and then said the regulations separately require the special counsel to notify Congress if actions are blocked by the sitting or acting attorney general.
If the special counsel proposes to take an action and is overruled by the attorney general or the acting attorney general, we're required to report that to the Congress. That's the structural independence provided in the statute.
Also, it's going to be a big day starting tomorrow and then back to back until Thursday. We have the closed Senate intel testimony from the president's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, then the public testimony on the House side on Wednesday, and then a closed session on the House side as well on Thursday, Trace.
Busy week. Catherine Herridge live for us in Washington. Catherine, thank you.